All right, so we're recording and I'll go ahead and share. The slides are in the slides are in
on the link, right?
In the calendar. So, and I'm looking at you guys on my screen, but it looks like I'm not because my camera's over here. So sorry, it's kind of weird. So EdPuzzle is basically an app. The free feature is workable, is totally workable. It's one of those like pay to get more features kind of things. So I'll talk a little bit about that, but I definitely think that even with what you get for free, you could do some cool stuff with it. There's a library of content that's already created that you can modify. Imagine any YouTube video that you can possibly imagine. And if the video you want to use is not there, you can upload a video yourself. You can also use your own videos. So I was just saying to Linda at the beginning, I could see it being really helpful these days when we're using Screencastify a lot to record your own lesson or your own instructions and embed questions along the way for your students, or even have them kind of give a little summary at the end to show that they comprehended the instructions you were giving or the lesson that you gave. So blending EdPuzzle with Screencastify, I think, is a really cool use of it, which I've never done before, but I think could be super powerful to use it in that way. Students are held accountable for watching the full video and demonstrating understanding in whatever way you want. You can do open-ended questions, true-false questions. You can add in little quizzes or multiple choice to ask them things along the way. You can set it so that they can't skip forward. You can also set it so that they can't, it'll pause the video if they try to go to another tab. So, so they can't kind of try to get away with like doing something else while their video is playing to get through with it. And so I used it actually a lot in the classroom setting because I found that it kind of kept everybody from checking out. So instead of watching a video and projecting it and we all watch it together and certain kids raising their hands to answer every question, students would watch the video on their own, have to answer the questions, and then we could either rewatch it all together, but I knew they had already seen it, or we could just go over the discussion questions at the end, and I knew that the kids had kind of, you know, picked up all the content. So the free version, you have like millions of videos that are already in there that you can access. You can also upload your own. You can create interactive video lessons, and you can see the responses, you know, track your students' responses. So a bit of assessment, and then you get storage space for 20 videos. So that doesn't include the, you know, the ones that are already created. You can store 20 of your own videos on there as well. Paid for a teacher for $11.50 a month, you get all that stuff. Hi, Robin. You get all that stuff, but you also just get unlimited storage. So if you use it a ton, it might be something to get reimbursed for. And I just requested a quote for how much a district kind of account would be. Just, I know that as we're moving forward and thinking about how are we transitioning all these ed tech tools back into the classroom, which ones are going to be the most effective for us to have moving forward, and which ones will the district support. And I think some of the stuff we've had, like Padlet and, you know, things like that, I would love the district to keep supporting those things because I think they could be really useful in the classroom as well. This one, possibly. So I'm just curious how much a district account is, and I'm trying to find out, you know, moving forward. But right now, just the free account is totally doable, and I've never paid for Padlet, so I think it's fine. I embedded a lot of videos in this because I thought I'd go through this kind of quickly and then look in sorry, not Padlet, EdPuzzle. We'd look in EdPuzzle a little more closely, but I wanted people to be able to refer back to these videos. EdPuzzle has a really great YouTube channel, and so I linked to a lot of their tutorial videos. You can integrate your Google Classroom, so you could just blend right in and add in your Google Classroom rosters. And if any K through 2 teachers are watching this later, you can share EdPuzzle videos on Seesaw. So that's an option for K-2 teachers as well, but it's really easy to integrate with Google Classroom. So basically you can import any video. I always look first for the content that I'm thinking of, because there's a good chance that a teacher has already uploaded a good video and maybe even come up with some good questions. And I can either use it as is, or I can modify it and change the questions if I don't like them all. But I always search their library first and then upload my own video if I can't find anything that I'm looking for. And then you can embed questions, and there's tutorials here on how to do all that, but I'm gonna also just walk through it. So you can crop the video and trim it, so you can't like cut and paste like little bits of it, but you can definitely cut the starting point and the ending point so that you can limit it to just a certain portion of the video that you wanna be using. If it's too long. And then you can see the answers. It shows you what percentage of the questions, which students have answered which questions, and they even have a grade book feature where if you want to be kind of exporting grades from grading their work, you can do that. I've never really done that. I've always just used it a little bit more to check for understanding, and then to know kind of which pieces of the video did it make sense for us to go back and talk about more. As a class, so that I knew what the kids were getting out of it. I just listed a whole bunch of ideas for how you might use it. You could flip your content so that students have a concept of something before you meet with them, and you'll have embedded questions so you have a sense of what you've wanted them to get out of it. It's a great way to check for comprehension. It's a great way, I think, to give instructions. So if you're doing a project, like let's say, you know, the 8th grade teachers want to screencastify themselves talking about the next step of the iSearch, they could record themselves and they could ask a few checkpoint questions along the way. So they'd upload their own screencastify instructions and then make sure that kids, you know, what did we say to do next? And you could have the kids kind of repeat it back to you for comprehension of instructions. Oh, I said that twice. So there you go. And I probably wanted the columns to be like more even or something. And so you could do like a virtual field trip or a guest speaker. You could find, you know, any sort of, you know, video about a place that you're reading about in a book or that you're studying, and you could incorporate that kind of video. You could turn your Google Slides into, you could record yourself going through a set of Google Slides and then do checkpoints along the way to ask questions. I thought maybe you could provide correct answers for a test, and then kids could respond and acknowledge any mistakes that they made. You could talk through. I know that in class, I was talking to Rich about the fact that, you know, when we're in class and we return a test, we usually take, you know, half a period or, you know, 20 minutes or something to go over a test with kids. And that with the limited amount of time we have right now, it's really hard to do that. So we were talking about ideas for how to kind of flip that and to record some of that stuff so that kids could hear you going over the correct answers, but not take up your precious time with them. And so this might be a way that you can do that, but also you have a space built in for like, what's one, you know, question you got wrong and what was your mistake or whatever. This is also great for subplans because you can pick the content and embed the questions. You might even have a couple videos just like on hold for emergency subplans or something like that. It's a really great, because it integrates right into Google Classroom, and it'd be super easy to just drop in and have your kids interact with a video in that way. So those are just some of my ideas for how to use it. Here's a video, if you were going to be using it with kids, that explains the whole process with kids, how to complete an EdPuzzle assignment. So I just thought having that link might be helpful if you were going to do that. And then this just links you to the EdPuzzle YouTube channel, where there's like talks through in like minute chunks every single step of the process so that you could find what is it exactly that you were looking for. And then this again is just a Slides Mania template. And it's called Garner, if you like this one. Slides Mania is where I go usually now when I'm starting a new presentation, because I have so many great ones. So I'm going to pause there for a second. I know that was really quick and it was just kind of a very basic overview. Any questions or thoughts before I jump over to EdPuzzle itself? Can you guys see, is my screen still shared? Is that still good? Yeah. Any thoughts, questions, or?
I don't have questions, but I have for science, like if a teacher videoed a demo, you could pause it right before you actually do it and have them make predictions.
Totally. Yeah, love it. I mean, you could do that. Yeah, I love that idea. Even with books, right? If you were doing read alouds, you could screencastify a read aloud and embed some prediction questions or things like that for it. I love it. It's a great idea. So this is what it looks like. You have a tab for your classes. And so I'm going to go ahead and just show you. You're both from the middle school, so you have Google Classroom. So I'm going to connect my LMS class. If I were using Seesaw, I would create a class and it would give me a class code. And then I just need to share that class code with my students and they would join my class through the class code. But if you're using Google Classroom, all I have to do is click on my Google Classroom. It's gonna list all your classes here. The only class I have right now this year is my Google Classroom training class. It's gonna make me pick a grade level. So I don't know. I'll pick 5th grade and I'm going to do general ed. And then it's going to import my students. And I only have one student who's like the test AUSD, like I have one fake student in there to just try things out with. So now my Google Classroom, this is my one class. So it's going to list them all here. So if you create an assignment, when you go to assign, if you have multiple periods, you can check off which ones you want to assign it to. So you could send an assignment out to multiple classes at the same time through Google Classroom. So that's really nice. And so my classes are here. I have all my archived classes from years past. And so at the end of the year, I just archive them to get them out of my list, just because you know me, I like things nice and organized and tidy, but you could leave them there. You don't need to archive them. And then if I wanted to create a video, so, you know, here's stuff that's trending. It'll give you, you know, ideas, but you could search for any content area and see what other people have created. So let's say I was just looking last night and let's say I want to do a lesson on the inaugural poem. And so that's been kind of all the rage this last week of doing lessons around that amazing poem. So you're going to notice that a lot of other teachers have already created, all these teachers have already created content around that poem. So I can look through and I can decide. I can see the questions that these teachers have embedded. If I like it as is, I can go ahead and just assign it. The questions will come up in a second. We'll be able to see. Maybe, I think this one maybe doesn't even have any, you would normally see down here little breaking points where questions were embedded. So right now it looks like this one is just the poem itself. I'm not sure why someone did EdPuzzle for that, why you wouldn't just share the link, but you know, if you wanted to just assign it as is, you could click assign. And then it gets copied to your own content. And then here you check off which students, I mean, which classes you'd want it to be assigned to. But that doesn't really help us because we want some questions. So let's try out one of the other ones and see if we can find one that has some questions built in. Let's see, that one looks the same. So maybe I'm wrong. Let's go back to the original one and see if we do edit, maybe questions will come up. I feel like in the past,
Yeah, there's usually little dots.
Oh yeah, look at that. It says 4 questions here. This one has no questions. So let's go to one where there are questions. And well, let's go to this one and let's edit it and add a couple questions, right? If you found one that already had questions in it, you could just go ahead and assign it or edit it. But if I want to add questions to this, I'm going to go ahead and go to edit. And then I can trim my video here. So if I want to, I can drag these and change the, the starting point and the stopping point.
Wade, we've braved the belly of the.
Sorry. And you can listen as you go to see where the good stopping point is. And then when you get to a spot where you want to add a question, you just click on the questions, and you could do open-ended. And you could type in your open-ended question. What do you think she means here? I don't know what she's saying right now, so I don't know what question to ask, but you could do open-ended, you can do multiple choice, and you can also leave a note for your students. So it's just like if you wanted to add your own little comments as they're watching, like, Robin, I'm thinking for a demo, you could, if you wanted to just add notes and be like, hey, did you guys notice how I such and such? Like, you could pause at that point in the video where you really are making sure that students are getting some sort of content that you want them to. So then you would just save your question, and it's going to be embedded there. And then the video will keep going. So what I usually do when I'm creating these is I'm watching the video and I'm listening and I'm like, ooh, and I'll think of a question as I'm listening and I'll pause, add the question in, and then just kind of keep going. And then all your questions are going to show up over here on the side. And when you're done adding questions in for the whole video, you can do finish. And then it's going to show up in your content, which is up here. And then you can go ahead and assign it once you've added all of your questions to it. So I don't know why I have that one twice, but so this one has 6. I don't know what I'm doing here. I've added things a couple times, but so this one has 6 questions already embedded. This was created by someone else. I can open it and edit it. I can delete or add questions into one that's already done. And then when I go to assign it, I can make a few choices. I can, let's see, is it going? Prevent skipping, you can turn it on or off. So if you don't want kids, I don't know why you would want them to be able to skip, but you can turn off skipping. And you can also turn on closed captions. So your kids can have some closed captions, which is great. And then you would just choose which class you want to assign it to. Check it off and then do assign. And it's going to integrate directly with your Google Classroom. It's gonna allow you to, you can set the date right here from within EdPuzzle. You don't need to go do all that in Google Classroom. You can set a due date, you can do a start date, and then when you're ready, you can post it on Google Classroom. So that's kind of the gist of.
If you set the start date, does that mean, so that means it won't show up at all in Google Classroom until that date?
I believe so. I haven't really tried that but I believe so. Yeah.
Well, I had a problem not with this, but with vocabulary similar, that I set the date for another day, but it showed up in Google Classroom sooner. So students were doing it sooner than the date it was available. So they were finishing it, but I couldn't see their work.
Oh, interesting. I don't know about that. That's seems like a glitch for sure. So there were a bunch of videos on in their YouTube channel on troubleshooting with Google Classroom. So there, you know, there might be some workarounds or some things around that that there are videos for. That's a really good question. In your content too, if you, under where it says my content, if you don't find a video that you're looking for and you have a URL that you want to upload, you don't find anything there, you can upload a video. So you can also, I've never done create a video, but you know, you could upload your own video that you found or your Screencastify videos or Loom videos that you've made, and you can do that there. So I do think, now that I'm saying this, that because it's putting videos into your own content, once you assign them, that you might be maxed out at 20 videos in your content library. And so it might be the kind of thing where, you know, just like on my Padlets, I had an old Padlet, so I was kind of grandfathered in with a certain number of Padlets, but I've never upgraded to the new school kind of thing. So I always reuse old ones, and I just kind of repurpose them once they're a couple years old. But it does seem like a bummer that you might create all these great questions and want to use that again next year or something. But again, you might, if you're thinking 20, right? Like you might save like 10 of your best, most meaty, interesting ones that have a lot of great content and questions. And the ones that are just recordings of yourself and Screencastify kind of things, you might rotate through because you have that video anyway. So you might.
But could you, for example, have now 21 videos, so you have to choose to get rid of one, but can it go back into like the main public library of videos? So then you could have it, but you would have to go collect it from there at another time.
Exactly. I think, yeah, if it's someone else's video that you've used, it would still be there in the main library. So you could go back and find it again. That's, I guess, the benefit of finding ones that are already created. If you kind of like bookmark the title or the creator, the name of the person, because you can search content. And so if you remember who made it and what the title was, you'd probably pretty easily be able to find it, unless they had to delete it from theirs, you know, right. And then you're like, oh, it's gone forever. But that's a great idea. Yeah. So that's kind of the gist of EdPuzzle. I just really love that it, I'm gonna stop sharing. We can go back to it if we want to, but I just really love that every kid is really held accountable for really processing the content of a video, because I mean, we all know we have kids that just zone out if you're showing a video in class and they're just relying on somebody else for answering the questions. So even when we're in class, I love using it first and then following up and, you know, either watching it again altogether. I've even played it through EdPuzzle up on my projector so that it would pause when the questions come up, and then we'd talk about each question and then keep the video going through EdPuzzle with the kids. You can also, you know, display answers or kind of show what kinds of responses, you know, students came up with at the end of for a question as well. So I think it's pretty cool. It's a pretty neat tool.
Thank
so
you so much.
You haven't done a lot with so what I'm thinking about is the sort of connection with Google Classroom and the grading aspect, like if you wanted to use it as an assignment. Is it that if you were going to do that, you would grade it in EdPuzzle and then that gets pulled into Google Classroom, you think?
I think so. There's, I did attach a whole video on the gradebook piece of it. And I have to be honest, I didn't really look to see if their gradebook syncs with Google Classroom's gradebook, but I think it does. Yeah.
I feel like you could almost even use this like, even for a quiz, like what if you, okay, again, I'm thinking like for me for science. So let's just say I make a video myself of like something happening. That's like an application of what they learned. And then I don't know, there's questions, whatever, multiple choice or something, to apply what they learned.
I think it's an awesome way to do a quiz, especially now where we're having to really think creatively about assessments. I think, you know, and we don't just have the same options for paper pencil. I think it's a really creative and awesome way to be a little bit more authentic in assessing, you know, and it allows you to do something much more visual than like a Google form would allow you to do, you know, or just paper pencil would allow you to do. Yeah, if you, I'm thinking about science, like if they had to, you know, explain, right, the different parts as you're doing them. And again, I mean, it could even be like, you know, was that a, I'm trying to remember all my 6th grade science, but like, which type of variable was that, right? That I just used right there. And you could give a multiple choice question. So it almost seems like not only a more authentic tool for assessing, but kind of more engaging for the kids too, you know, like reaches them on a different level.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
You might even be able to like, I keep trying to find ways that they're like doing an investigation, only I'm doing it. You know, if you had a recording of you doing a whole thing and you have them pause and like fill in the data table now, like it just feels a little bit more like they're doing it, sort of.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know, it would be interesting to see if you could embed like a link, right? If one of your questions could be a link to a Google Doc or something where you wanted them in that moment to then go. I mean, maybe at the beginning, you're just like, okay, have these tools available, like they're all on Google Classroom, like open your data table, open your whatever. And then in this point in the video, you're gonna have to pause and go into that document to do some recording.
I was even going to go old school. You got your paper notebook in front of you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna think I'll stop recording. Bye everybody. Bye all 3 of you that are gonna watch this at some point.